Please do have stop video. Audio does not use my audio. Use my please do have time the meeting.
Pat, we can start probably in about 3 minutes. I'll let you know when.
Okay, thank you.
Pat, do you have your video on?
I definitely opened up, but I'm not on. Oh wait, let me push it again.
Okay.
What? Oh, come on, stay up.
Okay. Your video's on, Pat, and you can start whenever you would like to.
My air conditioner is broken, so I have the window open. So if you hear noise, I apologize. Okay, I'm going to call to order the statewide election accessibility needs advisory committee. This meeting of the statewide elections accessibility needs advisory committee is called to order. It is 1:30 p.m. on May 20th, 2025. The meeting is conducted by video conference and telephone. Committee members, please keep your cameras on for the duration of the meeting. I will now take roll call. Katie Kime.
Katie, they're calling you.
Is she on?
She is in the same room that I am, and she's trying to get on. So her laptop is booting up at the moment.
Okay, but she's here, okay.
She is here.
All right, Cheryl Nelson. I guess Cheryl is absent. James Gashel.
I'm here.
Okay, and I'm here.
Cheryl is also here.
Oh, she is, okay.
Yes.
All right, great. Pursuant to HRS 92-3.5, you're required to disclose if anyone is present with you in this meeting. Committee members, is anyone present with you for this meeting?
James Gashel here. I'm in the same room as Katie Kime, and nobody else is present.
Okay. I have a friend here. Her name is Joe Bell, Pacheco, and she's a friend and a caretaker, and I have to have her here. So, sorry about that. All right, Katie, you're obviously in the same room as Jim, so there's nobody else, right?
She's still working to get on, so I can answer for her, and the answer is yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right, and Cheryl, is anybody with you? Okay. Additionally, pursuant to HRS 92-3.7, we will be meeting remotely using interactive conference technology. As a reminder to the public, your microphone will be mute until you are called upon. As it relates to public testimony, it will be taken after each agenda item. If you would like to testify, click raise hand under reactions on Zoom. If you're joining us by phone, press *9. When recognized, unmute your microphone, and for the record, state your first and last name and the items you will be testifying on. To ensure that we'll have sufficient time to hear all testimony, each testifier will have 3 minutes to testify. Once your time has expired, you will be asked to conclude your remarks. As technical issues may arise, we will give each testifier a few minutes to try and resolve any connection issues. However, if the issues cannot be resolved, we will have to move on to the next testifier. Okay, we'll now proceed to the agenda. After each agenda item, ask if there are any comments from the public and instruct them to raise their hands. We call them. Got it. All right, the first item is to approve the minutes from the December 19th, 2024 meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from December 19th, 2024?
Gashel here.
Chair.
Gashler, I move to approve the minutes.
Chair, this is Reese Nakamura. I just want to point it out. Is Commissioner Cheryl Nelson, could you unmute yourself? Seems like she's on mute. We can see you.
Okay, I second the approval of the December 9th minutes. Any discussion or objection? Let's consider the amendments approved. Okay, the next item on the agenda is an update from the Office of Elections on the status of the committee's previous recommendations related to voter education, outreach, and accessible voting. So I'll turn that over to you, Anthony.
Hi, committee members. This is Ray from the Office of Elections. I'll go ahead and share the status report. So the following is a status update relating to discussion from the December 19th meeting. The first item is the voting statistics for voters with accessibility needs. So per committee member Kime's request, we compiled voting statistics from the 2024 elections provided by the county elections divisions. And in this table is included in the meeting packet. So for the county of Hawaii, in the primary election, 83 voters requested an electronic ballot and 16 voted on the electronic ballot. In the general election, 178 requested and 82 voters voted. For the county of Maui, in the primary election, there's no data collected for the number of requests for electronic ballots, but for the Number of voters that voted on the electronic ballot, that would be 4. In the general election, 190 voters requested an electronic ballot and 38 voted. For the county of Kauai in the primary election, both for the request and voted, there were 0 voters. And in the general election, 63 requested and 5 voted. And finally, for the city and county of Honolulu in the primary election, 693 voters requested an electronic ballot and 20 voted. And in the general election, 901 requested and 901 requested and 109 voted.
That you didn't have any way of cross-checking those in any county, those that request an electronic voting ability, but they actually voted in the general election in some other way.
So for the purpose of this gathering of information, we simply requested from the county elections divisions those 2 items, the number that was requested and the number that was returned via electronic ballot.
Okay. I don't want to get into discussion right now, so you go ahead. And
Okay. Continuing on, the second item in the status update is regarding the committee vacancy announcement. So in January, the Office of Elections sent the committee vacancy announcement to our disability partner organizations, as well as the county elections divisions and the county elections accessibility needs advisory committees. Additionally, the committee vacancy announcement was posted to our office's homepage as well as the committee's page. The next item provided in this status report regards the accessibility survey, but I do know that we have that on the agenda item number 5. So I'll report that at that time. And then finally, for the status update, the item is regards to the accessible electronic ballot. So the demonstration ballot has been updated for the 2026 elections. So voters can find a link and login information to access the demonstration ballot on the voter accessibility page. And again, the voter accessibility page is easily found on our home page and the voter tools on the right-hand side of the page. And that completes the status update.
okay, this is Pat again.
Mhm.
Question I have is, thank you very much for the update. The question I have is, clearly the number of people that voted electronically was a lot less than those that requested electronic ballots. So would it be an unbelievable request to ask the counties to tell you of those who requested electronic ballots, especially for the general election, not the primary, how many of those that didn't use the electronic ballot voted by some other means?
No, I don't think that'd be an unreasonable request. We can include that in the next status report.
Okay, that would be really helpful.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, now, Jim, do you have any questions?
Not yet.
Okay, that's amazing.
Well, I mean, I'll have some as we go along, but not on this stuff. Just a comment, even though the numbers are lower, according to who requested the electronic and who actually used it, the numbers are still encouraging, and they'll get better from here. So given the fact that we're just kind of starting out with this, I think this is very positive.
Well, I tell you what I'd like to have, I assume there's some kind of privacy issue involved, is I'd like to have the names and email addresses of everybody that requested electronic ballot across the state. Because then we have a way of communicating with them and maybe getting them energized to reach out to their friends that may also have some needs like that, and to get them connected and create a, a family of disabled voters. But
Well,
would that be outrageous? I guess Anthony, or I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name. Ray is the other person's name. If we requested that it'd be a voluntary thing, but if you would reach out to them, or their counties would reach out to them and say, the committee would like to stay in touch with you and share information with you as we go along, because you voted in the last election or you requested an electronic ballot. Would you be willing to let us share your contact information with the committee? Is that possible?
I don't want to speak for the counties because, of course, they're going to be the authority on this. But my general sense is that the voter contact information wouldn't be used for that type of purpose. It really, I don't want to say it was a stretch to ask the counties to share the accessibility survey in the first place. But I think this is maybe one of the first times that we've made such a request. So to go beyond that and to ask for the contact information in order to further that communication, it may be a stretch. But again, I don't want to speak for the counties. We can put that question up to them if you wanted our office to make that request.
To make my comment clear, I'm not saying that the counties should give us that information before asking permission to do so. So the issue would involve the county contacting a person and asking them if they would be willing to share their contact information with us. And if the answer was yes, then obviously we would include them when we send out information of any kind. So I'm not saying that we're asking the county to give us permission without the person agreeing with that.
Yeah, I entirely understand. I do want to also make the point that we don't want to get into a relationship where we're assigning the counties additional work. So we can make that request, and I'm more than happy to make that request to the counties. But I do think that there's probably a fine line where we're requesting duties of the county elections divisions. Sorry, I just wanted to.
Gashel.
But if we
comment on this.
But if we were to be willing to draft to them an email, they wouldn't have to do any thinking, anything like that. We draft an email saying, hello, we are the county election people, and we've been asked by the statewide accessibility committee to see if you would be interested in sharing your contact information with them. If so, please let us know. We do all the work. They'd have to forward anybody that said, yes, we agree to us, but we try to minimize anything they would have to do.
Yeah, that seems like a reasonable middle ground. And again, just as we did with the survey, if this is a request of the committee, we can forward that request to the county elections divisions for them to ultimately decide.
Great, thank you.
Yep, okay.
Okay, Jim, I didn't mean to cut off.
No, I understand. That's helpful. Wait a minute, I'm getting an echo.
Oh, I'll mute. It's Katie. I'm
Okay, please.
sorry.
Yeah. Okay, now I can. Katie.
I'm trying. Give me a moment. I'm on my phone, Jim.
There is no echo of you on this side.
Okay, yeah. All right, I'm just going to take my earphones out so I won't hear the echo. Okay, so my comment was going to be, I think this is a good idea to ask all people who registered to receive the electronic ballot. This is going through the counties to ask if they would be willing to share their email with the statewide elections accessibility advisory committee. I guess we'll have to think about, are we asking for a yes or no answer, or are we asking them to send an email to the committee if they are willing? I don't know. We'd have to think through exactly what we're asking
Hi, committee
Um,
members. This is
the
Ray.
person to do.
I was thinking
It would be
maybe
less burdensome, although we may get less responses, but it may be less burdensome to the counties if our email to the that we're asking the counties to send out would simply include an email address that the individual could respond to in saying that they would like to be on the database to receive further information from the statewide committee. And that way the responsibility is on the individual, not the county, to let us know. I would say that would decrease the burden on the counties. The other point I wanted to make about this is we should anticipate. Here's the way I view this this list. Anybody who has registered to receive the electronic ballot is really just like anybody else who has registered to vote, in that next year in the spring, we will all receive a printed card, postcard in the mail in about April or so that asks us to confirm our existing address for the upcoming primary and general elections in 2026. And we should encourage the counties. I guess this is really up to them, but we should certainly encourage them to send it, just like they're going to send out the postcards, the printed postcards, to send an email using their existing list. So in the case of Honolulu, we have 900 and some on that list. Maybe it's even more by now. And so, 1,000 people or whatever the number is would get an email, just like they would also get a printed postcard, but they would also get an email. This gives them a chance. In some cases, email addresses may have changed or something else may have happened. It gives us a chance to clean up the list, I guess, but also to be in touch and alert them that they'll be getting electronic ballots for the upcoming election. So I'd want to be sure that our committee would encourage the county committees to do this when they're sending out their printed postcards next spring.
Hi, committee members. This is Ray again. I was just thinking through the most efficient way to generate that list of voters who requested a electronic ballot. And an idea, I mean, you guys can accept this or not, is maybe to send out a sign up sheet. So similar to the sign up sheet to receive updates about the committee meetings. In that email that the counties would send out, it can generate just a simple Google form, and the person can enter in their email address if they would like to opt in to receive communications from the committee. That might be a more streamlined way to get these voters to sign up.
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, so similar to how the county sent out a link to the survey, perhaps maybe they would send out a link to the Google form. Just an idea for you guys to consider.
Well, I don't care how we do it. I just want to be able to have all those people. I mean, it's over 1,000 people in the state that requested electronic forms, and I want to create a sense of a group, and maybe get them more people interested in what we do and what we talk about. So I don't care how we get the contact information, but I want to get it. So whatever works, whatever everybody agrees they can live with, is fine with me. Katie, do you have any observations about this or anything else connected to the item number 1?
Katie. Okay, just a minute.
Hi, Cheryl.
This is Cheryl?
Yeah.
Oh, good, you can hear me. I don't care how we get it out either, but I like the idea of putting the responsibility on the voter rather than the counties.
Well, likely we'll get more information for sure, more responses that way. Yeah.
This is Katie. I'm working from my phone. I apologize. It's not as easy with the mute and unmute.
Okay.
I have no comments at this time, but I like where we're going with it. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, now we'll open up to the general public. I'm sure you have a comment, Donald, right? We have any
No,
hands?
no raised hands at this time.
Oh my God, miracles do happen. Okay, the next thing is to report on the 2024 election accessibility survey.
All right, committee members, this is Ray again with the report on the survey. So just some background, the survey was created using SurveyMonkey. It was available in Hawaiian as well as the federally required languages, so that's Chinese, Ilocano, and Tagalog. In January 2025, that is when the survey went live. We posted a link to the survey on our homepage, as well as under the committee's page under news and announcements. We also sent out the survey to our disability partner organizations, asking that they share it with their networks. We do have an instance where the Assistive Technology Resource Center did also include the survey link in their monthly newsletter. So this occurred in February. So the ATRC included a blurb about the survey as well as a link to their community. Regarding the request of the committee to ask the County Elections Division to send the survey to their list of voters who requested electronic ballots. Hawaii County, Maui County, and the Honolulu Elections Division have already sent out the survey to its respective lists. We did have participation or agreement of participation from Kauai. However, their timeline for sending out the survey is still pending. Included in the meeting packet is are the findings of the survey, but I'll just quickly go over a few highlights. So the information that's in the packet, as well as the information that I'll be sharing today, is as of Friday, this past Friday, May 16th. So as of Friday, there were 158 respondents. For question 1, which county do you reside? 155 answered. 19% were from Hawaii County, 14% from Maui County, 6% from Kauai County, and 61% from City and County of Honolulu. Question 2, did you vote in either the August 10th, 2024 primary or the November 5th, 2024 general election in Hawaii? 153 answered, 92% answered yes, 8% answered no. Question 3, if you did not vote, was it due to your disability? 12 respondents answered, and that was two people that said yes and 10 that said no. Question 4, if yes, what was the reason or reasons? Select all that apply. 2 respondents. One responded, I did not receive a ballot in the mail, and one responded, I could not mail the ballot. Moving on to question 5, choose the option listed below that best describes the method you used to vote in the 2024 elections. 135 responded. The top 2 responses with 55% first is that I voted by mail, and second with 27%, I voted through an accessible electronic ballot using my computer or smart device. And then additionally, I did want to note that this question did allow for open-ended responses, so you can see a number of those responses in your meeting packet. And then question 6, in preparation for casting your vote in future elections, what kind of help would you like? And for this, they could make as many choices as they would like. So 125 individuals responded. The top 2 responses with first 52% was getting information about candidates, and second with 55% confirming that my ballot has been received and counted. And then similar to question 5, if you refer to the meeting packet, you can see some responses to the open-ended question.
Thank you very much, Ray. That's very informative. I suspect on the questions, I think 2 and 3, where you only had a very limited number of people responding, I'm guessing, but I think that the reason why it was so low is they thought that that question didn't apply to them. So I think we might have to maybe put clear direction in to everybody on those ones that had very limited responses, because people that felt that didn't apply to them didn't respond. That's my guess. But I'll look at the questions and see if I can think of something I can add that would make it clearer the next time around. But you clearly got, we only got about 80 responses in a 3-month period to the survey, so you got more. You more than doubled it almost, or doubled it at least, and that's good news. And we also have a sense of people that don't need electronic ballots, that do have a disability, clearly participated as well in the survey. So that's really, really good news. So definitely there is a community out there that we should connect with more aggressively going forward.
Unknown caller.
Let me get rid of the call. Sorry about that. Okay. Jim, do you have any comments?
Well, I think this I think this gives us something to go on in fashioning things we do leading up to the 2026 election. I haven't thought through the details of that, but I do find the responses informative. And, I think we're on the way to being in touch with a group of voters that need assistance. That's the important point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Katie?
This is Cheryl. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I just was going to say, I agree. I think it's a great start, and we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really optimistic, and I want to thank you all for sending out that survey a second time. That is really wonderful news, and I think we have nothing to lose by periodically doing this, because it's a way of reminding people that we exist and we have a function. So if we do it again later this year, if it's not too much of a hassle, it would be great to do it. Ray, do you have any sense, do you or Anthony have any sense of how many organizations you sent notice about the survey to? How many of them actually reached out to their members and to urge them to respond to the survey?
Outside of ATRC, we haven't gotten confirmation, so I don't want to report anything further on that. But I would hope so, and we have a pretty extensive list of disability partners. And in past requests, they've been more than helpful. So my assumption is that they've done the same for this survey as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it did go out statewide, utilizing like Gavin Abe's DVR network, as well as some others like the DOE spin network as well. So it did also utilize different methods that went statewide.
okay, good. Katie?
Yes, thank you. I was going to ask if we might see what the list is. I know that all of us added to the list of partners to send to. And then we could add further relationships if we're aware of them. The second point I wanted to make is that within the communication, when it's sent out, possibly requesting that they confirm that they've received and they've sent it out. So we have an awareness of how widespread it really is, since only one of the many responded ATRC confirming that they had mailed it out. If those two thoughts might be added to the comments and
Yeah.
where we might go with it in the future.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, this is just a simple response back to us on
Right.
that would be really helpful.
Mhm.
Okay, now we'll open it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pat. There was one other thing in my mind. I apologize. I know that some of the different organizations have regular newsletters, and maybe that would be one of the questions to all the partners is, when is your newsletter? When do you need something timely to be able to post it in your newsletter? So that I know that, for instance, the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled, they have a quarterly newsletter that goes out. And that would be a great resource to know, so that we could have something regular that's in their newsletter, so that it's, as Pat was saying earlier, it's always fresh in the minds of the patrons of those organizations.
Yeah. It was also sent out via, what is that called?
Excuse me.
The NFB Newsline. So that's another avenue that it
Yes.
did also go out via NFB Newsline, as well as the
Yes. Yes, I did see
Yeah.
it there, Anthony. I was just thinking that to have the confirmation, one, from the organizations that they received it and they posted or mailed it out. And two, if they have regular newsletters that go out, what would be the time we need to post to get it in their newsline? I mean, in their, excuse me, newsletter.
Yeah.
That was all. Thank you.
One minor microscopic detail is we obviously have to change the dates on the survey questions to refer to when elections are coming up to deal with 2026 instead of 2024. So that's a mechanical thing, but that change probably we put on relatively easy. Now, the next item is the ability of committee members to have communications outside of scheduled meetings. And evidently that conversation is supposed to occur in executive session. So we need to move on to the general discussion on issues with voters. Oh, wait, I have to ask if there are any comments on what we've been talking about relative to the survey from the general public. Okay, well, anyway, number 6, we have to deal with an executive session. So number 7 is the general discussion on issues with voters with disabilities. And that's pretty open-ended. But one of the things that has occurred to me is that how do we deal with this topic of voters would like more candidate information, or they associate us with the ability of getting candidate information? Is that in effect a permissible thing, Or, how could we as a committee be involved in that process? Educate voters more about candidates.
Gashel.
Yes, sir.
Well, many voters may not be aware of the candidate brochures that, I guess that's what it's called. Office of Elections put this out in late July, really. And of course the primary election, maybe it was mid-July, and the primary election was late July and early August. And then of course that same brochure was modified for the general election. But this is the first time that document was made available to anyone. It was required by the legislature, I think 2 years ago, and so this past election was the first time it was used. So I think voters may not be aware of the fact that this is available, and it is accessible. There were a couple of accessibility hiccups in it, but I think those got fixed and it worked pretty well. And so, one thought that comes to mind is that if we're going to start distributing information about accessible elections to organizations earlier in the cycle of the election, that one of our first mailings could be about the candidate brochure, which is available from the Office of Elections. And I think that would be and since it is an accessible brochure, and we could certainly ask that anybody who has accessibility needs relative to this document, to contact us. But in other words, to help get more word out about this brochure would help.
Yeah, when you say it's an accessible brochure, you mean it's electronic, so somebody.
It is.
Okay, good. Yeah, so basically all you're saying is we have to advertise these brochures more aggressively when they're out. Yeah,
that's true. And my memory is that in the 2024 election, it didn't come out until the middle of July, or maybe shortly after that. Well, in my mind, that's pretty late. I don't know what maybe somebody on the staff can find out if they don't know, maybe they know already. But I think it makes sense that brochure would be out much earlier than, say, a week or two before the primary election starts. And I know this was the first year it was done, so I'm not sure how early they could put it out, but they certainly knew who the candidates were well before the 15th of July. And I hope that they would be getting that brochure together even a month or two. Can we have a response on that, how early that could be?
Hi, James. This is Ray. So I can speak on that a bit. So just for some context, the candidate filing period ends in June. With that said, there's still actively candidates that are filing for office and submitting their candidate statements and photos up until that very deadline. A heavy lift for our office in creating the voter guide is the required translations. So for the candidate statements, we are required to translate those statements into Chinese, Hawaiian, Ilocano, and Tagalog as well. So although, yes, that is correct, that candidate filing does end in June, giving us about a month or so. A heavy lift for us is getting those translations done. I will say, as far as publishing, the deadline for our office for both the primary and general is to always make the electronic copy available in line with ballots arrive at homes. So ballots arrive to voters about 18 days before the election. So with that date in mind, that is when the voter guide for both the primary and general election are published.
Yeah, so from that, it's clear that they're under some constraints in putting it out earlier. But one thing we certainly can do is give early publicity to the fact that this will be available, and to look for it at, we can give an approximate date, whatever it would be, mid-July, and um, and and in other words, to make some awareness that this information will be available, and it will be available in an accessible format.
How about if, when you know who the candidates are going to be, you send out a list of names of the candidates to the voters in an email or whatever, or advertise it on public service announcement or whatever you do, and then have and say in that message that when you receive your ballot in the mail, you will also receive or have access to an electronic version or a hard copy of candidate information. So you're letting people know as soon as possible who the candidates are, and then when additional information will be coming. Would that be too outrageous? Ray?
No, so I did also want to just point out that that resource that you're describing sounds very similar to our candidate report. So at the start of candidate filing in February, our office does generate a candidate report that voters can find on our website. And that gives in basically real time, anytime that someone has pulled nomination papers and as well as filed. So that resource does exist, and voters can track that all throughout the candidate filing period from February to June. So that resource does exist. So maybe to your point, there could be more done to advertise that resource.
Yeah, that right. If you
Okay.
already, but again, I think I have no problem with people getting information 10 days before the election, because that's probably the first time they're going to look at information anyway. Another question I had is, clearly I would like to influence what these candidates put in their brochures with regard to items that affect people with disabilities. Are we allowed as a committee to basically ask candidates or potential candidates that when they develop their information for distribution, that they say something about what they're going to do about things that affect people with disabilities? Like, for example, transportation issues, moderately priced housing, things like that. Anthony, I think that's a question for your side of the table. Or is
Hi, Chair Morrissey, do you mind clarifying your question?
I'm saying I would like to influence what candidates put in their brochures or their information packet. So clearly, things that affect people with disabilities include things like access to accessible, affordable housing, access to accessible, affordable transportation, access to reasonable accommodations in public sector employment, things like that.
I don't think that is a stance that our office would necessarily take. We don't want to influence what the candidates include in the blurb that they provide to our office. The general guidelines that we give is to use the candidate statement as a resume, to share what they plan to do in office. So the same prompt is given to every candidate. It's really up to them and how they wish to use it. As far as giving them further prompts about talking about disability issues or any other issues that may get into the waters of us asking them to comment on very specific items, and I don't think that's a stance our office would want to take.
Okay,
So again, the candidates are free to use that 149 words to however they please. It's really up to them. But I don't think that we want to get into um, um, suggesting that or influencing them to use that space for a specific cause.
Time,
okay. Well, it didn't
Kate-
harm to-
Katie Kahn.
yeah, Katie?
I just have a question, Ray and Anthony, regarding what Pat was talking about, and I understand not wanting to get into influencing with the guideline to the candidates, but in your emails and communication with them, are you even putting in there anything about the fact that the accessibility committee exists so that they're aware that it's not influence? It's just making a statement that we have state and county-wide accessibility committees for individuals that have accessibility needs for voting. Just,
I think
I-
I think maybe we're talking about two separate things. So
but when you send the guidelines out, what, besides sending guidelines out to the candidates to submit to you of
Mhm.
their choosing, wouldn't it make sense to just put in that we exist?
I don't necessarily know how that would relate to the candidate filing process or the voter guide. Um, I think it's pretty prominent on our website information about the committee itself, but I don't necessarily see the through line between the committee and the candidate filing process. So you'll have to excuse me there. I'm not making that same connection that you are.
It's just a PR reference of marketing that the more that we are in print when information goes out from the state office of elections, the more that we become visible without necessarily influencing or making a statement. It's like a signature on an email stating everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people at the bottom of their email and their signature, they might say a quote, or they might say aloha, or they might say best wishes. It's just a note that identifies that the state has a committee on accessible voting. It's more just a link maybe to the website at the bottom of your signatures. But something along those lines is what I'm addressing.
Well, I'm gonna be blatant, excuse me, Jim.
Yeah.
What Katie's suggesting is that by letting them know that we exist, that might inspire them in their 120 words to make some parting reference to, something connected to people with disabilities. Or if they don't, it may be an indication that they're clueless about what the word accessibility means. Go ahead, Jim.
All I was gonna say is, number one, I'm sure the Office of Elections has a practice and policies about trying to stay neutral on any issue, because they're trying to just make elections happen, not to influence how the elections come out. So I do understand that. But on the other hand, I'm sure the Office of Elections puts out some information to candidates. Um, well, for one thing, the guidelines for their candidate statements, but maybe other things. These things I don't know, but I think the point that we're trying to make here is that in any information that is distributed to candidates in a very neutral way to promote awareness of accessibility needs in the election process. This may be highly relevant for how campaigns are conducted. Sometimes, in providing American Sign Language or sign language interpretation, for example, would be something that might come up. And the Office of Elections could certainly point out that there is a committee established by law to help meeting accessibility needs related to elections. It seems very relevant to me that candidates may want to know that. You don't have to take any position about what the committee would say or do, but merely the fact that the Office of Elections does have this committee as a resource in helping to make elections more accessible would be something that I think would be relevant for candidates to know about.
I agree with Jim.
Could we have some thoughts from Ray about that?
Hi, committee members. Yes, I don't disagree with anything that you're pointing out. I do think that that information could be shared with candidates. I wanted to distinguish that I wasn't saying that necessarily saying that the information shouldn't be shared. I was trying to make that point that I'm not certain that it would be appropriate for that information to be included in the guidelines for the voter guide statements. But I completely agree with you folks. It would be beneficial for candidates to know more about the committee's existence in the first place.
So
This is,
oh, I'm sorry. I'll give way to Cheryl here if you're going to recognize her, and then I'll be prepared to make a motion.
this, Cheryl, can you hear me?
We can
Can
hear
you
you.
hear me?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes, Cheryl.
You can?
Yes.
Okay. I was just gonna say, as much as I agree that, it's that we exist, but I could be wrong, but I don't think we're the only committee or the only interest group that the Office of Elections has. So maybe just a simple statement on things at the end, like a signature that says the Office of Elections strives, I'm just making it up right now. The Office of Elections strives to provide equal access to all voters. And then leave it at that. And so I'm not saying that is the statement. I'm just using that as an example because I'm sure you guys have many other interest groups besides just people with disabilities or other committees. And I think that keeps it open for access, in a number of directions.
Gashel.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, the Office of Elections certainly does reach out to
That's
a
all.
lot of groups, Cheryl, but we exist by part of the election law in ways that nobody else does. So I think we have a point here that the Office of Elections in communicating with candidates should provide some information about voters with election accessibility needs, because that's part of the law. and that's what, you know, Ray agreed to that point. It's just a question of how this information goes out. But my motion, I want to make my motion that we request that in its communications with candidates beginning with the 2026 election, that the Office of Elections include information about accessibility needs in voting and refer candidates to the Election Accessibility Needs Advisory Committee, so that candidates are alerted to respond to accessibility needs as part of their campaigns.
5 seconds.
I think that's really good, the way you said that. I hope somebody, well, it's recorded, so they can copy it. Okay, so Katie, I think you were gonna second the motion or whatever.
I did, thank you. Sorry, I cut in pretty quick after Jim finished the motion,
Okay,
but I'm seconding it.
okay.
Yes.
I'm assuming there's no objection on the committee, right? Cheryl, are you with us on this?
Yes,
Can I, hi, this is Reese. I'm sorry. Could you, restate the motion? I do want to bring up one issue, because we kind of went all over the place on this. I would suggest that, we haven't had put some of these issues that we've been discussing just now on an agenda with specifically. We have it under the generalized discussion. I would suggest that we consider not taking a vote today, since this is more of a brainstorming action. But we have to give the public some opportunity to weigh in on it and discuss it, and they really haven't had the chance based on the general agenda item we have. So instead of taking votes on it at this meeting, I would suggest that it was good we had this brainstorm session, but we consider, and the chair has a discretion. The chair consider putting it on the next agenda, allowing the public to weigh in on it specifically, because we might have more people who want to weigh in on the various topics we talked about today. And then, and once it's there, then you can take the vote. But
Yeah, I'm sorry, Gashel.
Yes.
Am
But
I recognized?
yeah, you are.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I'm willing to handle it that way if we have to for the whatever that law is called. Public information, sunshine law. I'm willing to do it that way. I hope it's not going to be too long before we have another meeting. But yeah, to put a specific motion on this issue on the agenda for our next meeting.
Yes, correct. And I think, and again, it's going to be, we have to craft the next agenda. So there's some time for the chair to consider what to put on, and we can give, and by being more specific, instead of what we have today, we have a general discussion. By being more specific, we give the public a fair opportunity to weigh in on it. And then, at that point, a vote might be more appropriate at that time. So
I'm good with that.
For the record, I'm not going to ask that I be chair for the next 2 years. My term is up in January, so my time is limited on this committee. If you're going to meet before the end of my term, I'm willing to put this off. I don't think we're talking about something outrageous. I think the public would agree with this 150%. I think the way that Jim described it was clear and straightforward. And I think that, to put it off for 3 months with minimal comment expected, other than endorsement, is a waste of time.
I think, you know, again, it wasn't on this agenda. So the public doesn't have an opportunity to look at it, and that's why I'm stating it now. I don't know if we have to wait 3 months, do we? I mean, we said,
No, we could meet next month if we wanted to
Yeah.
and vote on this. So you know, I guess we have to bow to the sunshine law to some degree. So I mean, that's one of the darn. Yeah,
I'm a necessary evil, I realize that.
but what I would like to do, Madam Chair, is to make sure that the minutes reflect what I said in the motion, and that we have an agenda topic on whenever we have the next meeting, and indicating that we will vote on this motion.
Fine.
Then I think we're covered with the sunshine law.
Teresa Yick.
Yeah, I hear what, this is Cheryl. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just checking. I see what Pat's saying too, is that things can get dragged out for an eternity and before, you know, things happen. So I see that side of it too. So I think that having it on the next agenda as a discussion item, and
As an
make our meeting.
as an action item.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's, I'm sorry, I meant
Okay.
to say action.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
as an action item.
So it's real clear that we're going to take action on this at the next meeting.
Okay. Well, we want to allow the public a chance to weigh in on it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
But once they testify, we're taking action.
I don't want here. I want us to do whatever we can do to make sure that we can take action at the next meeting, that we don't have to discuss it at the next meeting and then take action at the next meeting after that meeting. So my point is, Reese, I guess you're going to have to tell me if we can do it this way, but we're discussing it now. We're going to publish in our minutes the text of a motion that will be proposed at the upcoming meeting, and that we intend to vote on that motion at the next meeting, whenever that meeting is. I don't know, June 15 or
Right.
July 15 or whatever, but I don't want to wait until October 15.
But that's all up to you when you want to set the meeting. So
Yeah.
you don't have
Okay.
to. Right.
Yeah. All right.
Okay,
So I would,
I'm concerned about the precedent of every time a great idea comes up, we're gonna have need to postpone dealing with it till the next meeting. I mean, we are not talking about frickin' you know, rocket science here. We're talking about some way in communication with the public to let them know that this committee is a resource on accessibility connected to campaigns. If this wasn't a motion, if it was just a recommendation to the office that they include reference to us as an accessibility resource for campaigns, and something they sent out, would that speed things up? I mean, you know, there are big issues out there that come up that need to be addressed. This is an important one to let people know more about us. does it even take a damn action item to make it happen? No,
Gashel.
go ahead.
If,
No, no.
I don't know here, I'm gonna ask Reese to, respond on this, but I think what I'm hearing is that I know that at each of our meetings, we have this agenda item, which is phrased general discussion on accessibility needs, whatever. It's intended to be sort of a catch-all. I think what he's saying is that's fine. You can go that far. But if you're actually going to make a motion under that agenda item, that motion should be made to vote on at a future meeting, because the public hasn't had enough notice that, nobody's had enough notice that this will be more specific than the general topic of accessibility needs. And this is, I realize that, in some ways, this is obviously a constraint on what we can do, but we're the victim of the sunshine law in that respect, the way I see it. Reese, am I understanding this right?
Jim, Commissioner, actually, I don't know if I could have said it better, because that's exactly it. Because, I mean, it's the general discussion is great. And I think that's where all the ideas come from, and, the brainstorming. But the public, we don't know what's going to come out of that discussion, and the public needs a chance to, if we're going to take action on it, make a vote on it, then the public needs an opportunity to weigh in on that. Other types of, if you're not taking an action on it, that's fine. But I think we have to give the public that opportunity, and that would be my advice.
Now, in the case of, if we have something that we think is really even more urgent than this, we could schedule the next meeting 8 days from now and put out the agenda. I don't know, we have to have the agenda out a week in advance or something like that. So
6 days
we
before
can have the next meeting 8 days from now and vote on this.
if you want.
Fine.
Go ahead, Katie.
I
mean, but again, you have to craft the agenda to give the public an opportunity to weigh in on it. Okay, so
Okay.
that's the main
Problem with putting details in the minutes is that the final minutes aren't known until whenever Anthony sends them out. And not sent out until we approve them at the next meeting. So, you are not giving the public information in advance of a vote of the next
The
meeting.
minutes will be on the website as well as part of the meeting.
But they have to be approved. So the minutes for today will be approved at the next meeting. So the public is not going to know what we're talking about here until we approve the next minutes.
Well, we'll have to craft the agenda in a way to give them a good idea of where you're.
I know.
Okay,
The minutes by December 19th were approved today. So the public doesn't have access to the December 19th minutes until after today. What I'm saying is, if the only vehicle for the public to know about what we'd like to do is the minutes are not the right source, because the minutes will not be approved until the next time we meet.
That's not the only.
Then we
can go around and around, but I think on the agenda, as you
understand what I'm saying. The
I
public
understand.
doesn't know about this until when they have access to the minutes for today.
And Anthony, I'm sure, can get it done quickly.
Time,
No. The minutes from today will not be approved until the next meeting. And the public does not have access to unapproved minutes.
But if
I do wanna
understand-
make
but if
a-
I understand this correctly, we can still vote, Pat,
Yeah.
on this as long as it's on the agenda. And we say on the agenda that we will vote on this item.
And just a clarification, there is a draft minutes that does go up on the website, as well as the video, which also goes up on the website.
But I think the
Immediately
point
after.
is that the agenda is the thing that gives notice, not the minutes. The reason I reference the minutes is that's gonna say more precisely what I actually said in making the motion, which would help. But it's gonna be the agenda that gives notice.
Correct.
And that agenda goes out 7 days before our next meeting. And we'll have to craft that agenda item in such a way that we get to vote on this, not just discuss it at the next meeting.
time,
Correct.
Okay, I give up.
time.
Hi, Katie, go ahead.
I'm been tracking and was going to say what Jim just said, but in addition to that, I think that an action item like this, even though it's just in a sense, common sense of the way that we're presented to the public repeatedly, I feel strongly that it needs to be an action item, not a recommendation, so that it makes accountable the Office of Election to do it rather than to put it off because they have a lot of other priorities. But when we make it an action, it becomes one of their priorities because the committee, as Jim has stated earlier, is a committee by law. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone in the audience have questions or comments? Okay, I think we have to adjourn this meeting and then go into an executive session so we can cover the other topics.
So just to clarify, we're not adjourning the meeting, but we're gonna go in. There's a motion. There needs to be a motion to go into executive session.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
okay. Is that enough, Anthony?
Yes.
Okay. Now what happens?
Hello, we're back in the regular room.
Okay, this is Pat Marcy. We were,
Might just want to confirm everybody's back in.
okay. Is everybody back in?
Cashel here.
Okay, Katie,
Kime here.
okay, and Cheryl? Cheryl? Earth to Cheryl.
We we see Cheryl. Cheryl's
Okay.
back in.
Okay, okay, all right. We discussed, the ability for members of the committee to have conversations with each other outside of, these meetings, committee meetings, in a manner that's consistent with the Sunshine Law. And, we have a full understanding of what they are. And so the only thing left on the agenda now is the date of the next meeting. And so I would take any recommendations on that at this point.
Gashel,
Yep.
I suggest July 20.
Okay, please tell me we don't have to take a vote on that. Does anybody have a problem with July 20th?
I do. I'll be traveling in the air that day, so the July 22nd would be a better day. I don't know what day of the week that is.
Fine
Right.
with me.
Right, July 20th. They look and see when July 22nd is.
I think the usual practice is that Anthony sends out several days and we tell him which ones are available. But
July 22nd, I think, is Tuesday.
yeah, so he could send out a notice not earlier than July 22nd, and maybe 2 or 3 other days that we can all pick from.
Okay,
Okay.
To
Right.
help establish quorum, I won't be back on island till the 21st in both days, the 20th, 21st. I'm airborne, so I couldn't do it from where I'm located. That's why 22nd would be my first date to help establish quorum.
okay.
Okay, 22nd, 23rd. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Cheryl,
I
Thank you.
will reach out and confirm with staff and
you have
yes.
with the 22nd or 23rd of July?
I will have to take a look at our calendars. And then we'll send a
I was at,
confirmation and give you folks some different options.
okay, all right. So now I need a motion to adjourn.
Time moves to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, any objection to adjourning? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.